here I am at 82. I'm busy with Zonta and family history and writing to friends and doing all kinds of nice things.
I'm pretty sure, without checking, you're the only person on the planet who has been instrumental in the development of 16 clubs.
That sounds wonderful.
So I think we would all benefit from your words of wisdom. What's your background, Dianne?
Started off with being a legal secretary. I worked in Vancouver in Canada for 2 years. I was in business with my husband. We imported and wholesaled and retailed ceramic tiles from Italy and Japan and Korea, Germany a little bit, and Spain, but mostly from Italy. My husband used to go and do all the buying, and I looked after all the money.
And how did you come to Zonta?
A friend was invited and asked, of course, do you know any other women who would like to join Zonta? And she said, Dianne Leggo. I said, no. Somebody rang me and I said, oh no, I'm much too busy. How often do you hear that when you're starting a new club? Always. That became good for me because I could say to people, that's exactly what I see. Here I am, 42 years now, and I've never stopped loving it. It's been a passion for me ever since.
What especially do you love about Zonta?
I guess it's a lot of the domestic violence issues we face. I love the international programs, and it was wonderful to be on that international committee.
Oh, that does sound wonderful. What do you think is the most important thing for a club creator to do or be when she is holding an information meeting for the first time with potential Zonta members?
You have to project an image and you have to engage people. I think that's one of the most important things for an organizer. You've got to make it alive.
Given us the first thing that you think is important to connect with the people and have expression on your face when you're speaking. What else is important?
I like to do clubs as quickly as possible. Some people I've heard take 2 years. And I think, but by the time you get to the 2 years, you've lost half the people.
How long would it take you to create a new club? What was your fastest one?
I used to drive or go by bus, whatever was the cheapest way. But Mount Isa was 24 hours drive. I said to Mary, I will do a lot of things for Zonta, but I will not drive 24 hours each way, and you'll have to pay for me to fly. So I had to do it in 2 visits because that's all we could afford. So that was my fastest club.
And how far apart were those visits? Are we talking months, weeks?
Maybe a month or maybe 2 months, something like that. Another thing I think is very important. You've got to follow up all the time. In my day, we didn't have computers sending emails. I had to write a letter, print it off, put it in an envelope, and mail it. I used to research the town. I looked in the newspapers for business people, and I looked in the professions, solicitors and the nursing professions, the schools. I would write 100 letters and I'd follow them all up. And from that 100 letters, I usually got 50 people who would come. I would tell them that we were going to put on a number of information meetings and give them some options of a time. I would always give them some options, and I would try to do it morning, afternoon, and evening. So when I hit the town, I would often stay for a week, and I would hit the phones, and I would phone them all. I would usually get 50 women to come and hear what I had to say. And from that 50 women, I usually got 25 members. 20 was the minimum when I was doing it. I always wanted 25 because you will always lose some in the first 12 months.
Do you recall what your letter said?
Oh, they varied. It was not long. And I just spoke about international.
When they join the organization, they can immediately roll up their sleeves and become involved. How did you manage that?
I didn't encourage them to do a project until they had a club board, a treasurer, and a bank account. I had an organization meeting. As soon as I had my 20 members on the form that I gave them to fill in when they said they would like to join, or I had questions, would you like to stand for position on the club board? And also, what committee would they like to serve upon? So at the organisation meeting, I already had people who were prepared to stand for the board, and I never let anybody join until they'd given me the money in my hot little hand. They weren't members until they had paid, because sometimes they would back out. Till I got the 20 members with the money, didn't ever do an organisation meeting.
Besides the letters and the follow-up, what did you do to prepare to come to a new town?
I had to find a venue. You could do it on Zoom, but I had to find a venue in each of the towns. I often used to use the high school. I always told the mayor of the city that I was coming to form a Zonta club in the city as a courtesy to you, I would say. And they would say, oh, we've got so many clubs in the city. I don't think you'll be able to. And I used to say to myself, you just want me.
Just watch.
So I'd find a venue. And sometimes it wasn't the most desirable venue.
You had these 50 people come. What did you say?
I had about an 8-page thing. I used to have it in front of me. I used to say to them, forgive me for having my notes in front of me, but I get so carried away about Zonta that I will go off on tangents instead of telling you exactly what you need to know. I had that as an excuse. And because I did it so many times, I didn't really have to look at it that much. I would be able to present with some nice little anecdotes about more personal things or funny things, or tell them how exciting the international convention were. I made it a very exciting organisation to belong to, and I still feel that excitement.
Did you ask the question, do you want to join right at that event?
Yes.
And you hand out that application, right?
Yes. Yes, I did.
One of the things that I actually also want to ask you is, what are some of the don'ts? We talk about how to do this and how to do that, but are there also things that you say, look, in my experience, stay away from that?
I am such an optimist. It's very difficult for me to think of negative or don'ts, but I have got something else in my mind, and I'll say it while I think about it. It's the mentoring is so important by that club that organised them, particularly the organiser, because that's who they know.
That's what I was going to ask you. How long?
I think that mentoring really needs to be quite hands-on for 12 months anyway.
I think so too. A year is a good amount. How did you explain dues in your presentation?
I told them it was such and such an amount, whatever it was in those days, and part of that goes to international. But you can't have 1,100 and not have a paid force to look after. Part dues will go to international, because we don't want people who can afford to be our leaders. We want best leaders that we can
Oh, I
get.
like that.
Yes. We have a district, and I told them what the district was, and we have a district governor, and they organise and look after the district. And then I said, we need to keep some money back for club dues so that we run the club, so that you don't have to put your hand in your pocket all the time. For Zonta, you pay your international and district and club dues.
What was another question they would ask?
How much time will it take? People used to say, oh, if I join something, I want to give it 100%. And I said, no woman that joins Zonta can give 100%. We're all business and professional women, and most of us are married with children, and we just don't have time to give 100% to an organisation. I'm looking for
20
women who will give me 5%. People do a lot, and others will do just a little, but everybody is expected to do something. It's not just a dinner club. And then at the very end, I say people join Zonta for different reasons. They might join for fellowship. They might join for networking. They might join for personal development. But hopefully, most of all, they'll join for the service. And if they join for the other things, we will make them into Zontans. You're committed to the Zonta International and local service aspect of it. Then the last thing is, and I warned them at the beginning, at the end of this presentation to you, I will be asking you, do you want to join? I will give you the form straight away to join. Need to think about it, or maybe discuss it with your family, or thank you very much. It's been interesting, but it's not for me. I would get those 3 answers. And for the ones who said yes, they want to join, I'd give them that form to fill in. The ones who were interested, wanted to think about, they got the form. And everyone got a copy of the presentation. I didn't give it to them at the beginning because I didn't want them looking down, reading ahead of me. I wanted them to be looking at me, projecting myself and feeling the excitement of it all.
So your closing question was now, at the end of the presentation, how did you phrase it?
Who would like to join? And sometimes they'd be a bit reluctant, but if one said yes, then I found the others would say yes.
Yeah.
Who's interested? Who's interested? But would like to maybe talk it over with their family and have a little think about it. And they would put up their hand and I would give them a form. If you're not interested, that's fine. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that you know a little bit about Zonta now. So when we form this club, you will know what they are and maybe you'd like to join at a later date.
Nice.
Did you follow up on the middle group?
Oh, yes. I followed up on them all. The ones who said yes, they're going to join, I'd follow them up and say, oh, yeah, I haven't received your form yet. And your money?
So the cash would go to the sponsoring organization.
Yes.
Did you feed them?
No. I mean, I was coming from many miles away, sometimes by bus.
How long was the
About 3/4 of an hour. I'll tell you a little story. When I went to Dublin to start the club in Dublin in Ireland, I went to the mayor. She was a woman. And I told her, as a courtesy, I'm telling you that I'm starting my
club.
When I rang, I phoned her and she said, I can only give you about 10 minutes. I said, that's fine. I'll take 10 minutes because I wasn't giving her an information presentation or anything. I was just telling her that I was starting a club. She gave me 40 minutes and she got out her address book and said, these are some of the women that you should be asking.
Yeah.
And she said, would you like to use my mansion for your information meetings?
Wow, the stories you have had.
Yeah. Then she joined the club and we had the charter dinner in the mansion.
I think it's a really great suggestion because the mayor often has access to council rooms and there is something to say about having a meeting in one of those formal settings.
When somebody filled out their application or they said they were going to, then they didn't. It must have been discouraging at first. How did you handle that?
I had a card for every person that I approached. You would do it on the computer now, but I had a little card like that. And the date I sent the letter, the date I followed up, the date I phoned them, whether they attended an information meeting, whether they said they'd be on the board, what committee they wanted to be on. And then on the back of the card, I used to say, married, with 2 children, daughter was sick with such and such, so that when I followed them up again, I would say, how's your daughter? She was sick last time I spoke to you. And they'd think I was wonderful because I remembered.
Did you do your presentations alone?
Mary McGee did quite a few of the information meetings with me. I did all the paperwork and all the cards and all that kind of thing. And Mary was very good value because she was a chemist and she had a very sophisticated aura about her. I was the businesswoman and I had a different kind of persona. So I think it's really good to have that balance of professional women were impressed by Mary. I could give the businesswoman who used to think, oh, I don't think I'm good enough for this, which is exactly what I thought. I'm not good enough to be a Zonta member because we had the director of nursing and solicitors and all those people in my first club. And I'm only a businesswoman. The balance of those 2 different personas, I think, was very important. So on that subcommittee, or whatever you call it these days, I think you need a balance.
How many existing Zonta members do you think you should have at the presentation?
Depending on the number of people that are coming to this function, not so many Zonta members that overpowers them or makes them feel inhibited, but enough that they can circulate and talk to them. Mary and I sometimes used to do half the presentation between us. And she would pop in and, oh, Dianne, you must tell them about such and such. And I would do the same with her. So it made it less formal, even though we were sticking to a script. it was informal.
Yeah. Talking about Mary always reminds me of my impression of Mary, and that I didn't want to disappoint her because she had such high expectations. As she would say, I want to see so many clubs, and she would make it clear what the goal was. She had a
Absolutely.
vision in mind.
Oh,
I want to have a club in Winnie. I want to have a club in. I'm inspired by her.
She did more work for Zonta, I think, than anybody in the world.
Wow.
She was so dedicated.
Did you ever work on more than one club at a time?
Yes, we did. We did 3 at a time to save money because they were all in the northern part of Queensland.
When we undertake a great project, sometimes we have moments of doubt. Did that ever happen to you?
In my 20 years of doing this, I always thought time has changed and maybe I should change. But it kept on working. I was hesitant to change when I was being so successful.
And successful you were. We're talking with Dianne Leggo from Australia, District 22, sharing her tips on how to start a new club. Dianne, thank you so much for your time and for being with us today to share your pearls of wisdom. And Chief Club Creator Ans-Marie Van Erp, also from District 22, thank you so much for introducing us to Dianne Leggo. This is Membership Chair Teresa Harris saying thank you for listening to this program. All of us wish you tremendous success, and we thank you. By increasing Zonta membership, we will be able to do more good around the world. We build a better world for women and girls.